Hello, thank you for joining us. My name is Robert Kruger. I am your host. This is the Anarchist Experience. And today I have two guests with us from the Voluntary Virtues Network. We have Sandra Ramberg, who hosts A for Anarchy on the Voluntary Virtues Network Thursdays, 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and Randall Parker Jr., who hosts Roads to Liberty on Voluntary Virtues Network on Fridays, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Today we will be going over an article that appeared in Salon a little ways back. A lot of you may have known what this article was about from a video that was done by Stefan Molyneux. It was the limits of Libertarianism Rebutted was his video to critique this particular article that we're going to be going into. Of course, we'll also get to other comments that have been thrown around on the internet, see what we can come up with as far as our responses to that. I did find some new technology that will allow me to take calls. I'm hoping to get that implemented not this next Sunday, but the Sunday after that, because this next Sunday I will be in Arizona, going to the Jack Fest Liberty Festival, and giving a speech, having some good times, hanging out with some friends, meeting some people that I've spent time with, hanging out with on voluntary virtues, like Michael Shanklin, Larkin Rose, and things like that. So if you are in the Arizona area, or if you can make it out to Jackalope or Jack Fest, please do. It's kind of near Heber or Peyton. So if you do need assistance with that, getting there or anything like that, just go ahead and check them out on Facebook. Put in Jack Fest, and you will find that there are people who are willing to help you out. Anyway, the article, we will put the link in the description of the video, and it's at Salon. Its title is, well, let's see here, Why I Left Libertarianism, an Ethical Critique of a Limited Ideology. And are you guys familiar with this one, Randall?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, and you checked it out?
Yeah, I heard the Molyneux podcast first, and that kind of made me aware of the Salon article.
Uh-huh.
And I guess I heard my biased viewpoint before I heard the unbiased viewpoint, but I had to go back and fact check. But I think I have a wrap on it.
And Sandra, did you have a chance to actually read the article and get familiar with what it is that this person is saying?
Well, like Randall, I first saw the video, but I have also read through the article. So yeah, I have been able to check it out.
Well, one of the things that I like to pride myself on in being a skeptic, I'm an atheist and an anarchist, and not an asshole like some other person. But anyway, what I like to do is I like to take advantage of my skeptical mind, and I like to look at things and evaluate them specifically on whether it has truth value or not, or whether it's a fallacy that's being used or not, whether it holds water, logic, and reason. And I don't care whether it's coming from somebody that's on our side or somebody who's on the opposing side. So in this particular conversation, I think that we're going to see that Stefan Molyneux makes a few mistakes in his videos, in his video critique as well. Can't just hold back from giving him a little bit of you did it wrong. So when you saw the video from Stefan Molyneux, did you find that his criticism of the colloquial nature of the article was a little bit, I don't know, nitpicky? Because, I mean, it's in Salon as an op-ed type piece. It's not a dissertation. It's not a thesis. It's for Salon. So the guy being a little bit I this, I that, maybe you could have cut him a little slack there.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with that as well, to a degree. Just to concede a little bit on I guess my side. I feel like that's the right maneuver to take, but at the same point in time, to take on, it's not like he's saying, here's why I don't like Arby's. He's saying, here's why I don't like a political a philosophy of social order. So you don't take a, you know what, it doesn't feel right to me kind of approach. You take a kind of a clinical, sophisticated approach to that. So
Oh, that's true. I'm more referring to like the beginning of Molyneux's video when he's critiquing it and saying, so we've gone through about a third of the whole article, and all it is I, and that's not a way to, you know, yeah, sorry, it's Salon, you know. But as far as like the actual critiques, when he goes into the critiques, that's where he really drops the ball. And as far as your opinion on Stefan's take on it, Sandra, did you have any critiques that you would make for Stefan's appreciation or lack thereof?
Well, I felt it was a bit personal, maybe. Like he was a friend of mine, or he came to visit me, and it was a bit like he can't change his opinions. Sorta. That's wrong of him to change his opinions. So I felt that was a bit. I wouldn't say egocentric, maybe, but maybe a bit. My opinions are right, and it's wrong of you to go to another direction than what myself is a part of.
Well, you know, again, keep in mind, you know, in the case of Stefan Molyneux, he's dealing with somebody he did know in personal life, and I suppose he's doing something that's kind of folksy as well, you know, having that personal one-on-one kind of YouTube video, which has his talking head talking to the camera, where he's really invested in what you're saying. Oh wait, no, he's not, because he's just telling you stuff. And he's got a little folksy thing that he does in general. So I guess we have to forgive him that. But yeah, in general, both parties, if they're going to be discussing things and claim that they're philosophers and going to be discussing it on philosophical levels, saying, what, there's no shout-out for Free Domain Radio? Yeah, that was not necessary. But I forgive both of them for being a little bit too, I don't know, open with their humanity instead of being clinical. So let's go into a couple of things that we're really taking issue with by Molyneux in this particular article. One was that the argument came from this person who said, all right, well, this is a general idea about how anarcho-capitalism or anarchists or voluntarists or libertarians talk and how their positions are. So he says, I'm going to make a broad generalization. It's hard to criticize a body of thought like libertarianism. There's no one set of definitions as to what they are or what they believe. So for any criticisms, there will be exceptions. Okay, that's fine. But then he wants to avoid the no truth Scotsman arguments. Okay, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that, and I think that Molyneux is correct in calling him out on the fact that he's not specific. You know, he's not specifying what it is that he's, you know, critiquing. So, did you find that it was kind of hard to nail him down on exactly what it is that? All right, these are the specific points. Bullet point. Bullet point. Bullet point.
Yeah. Absolutely. I mean, that's the main thing I think Molyneux was saying, and I agree with you, Robert, that he definitely shot himself in the foot and got himself out of the gate a little bit slowly by kind of feeding into what the gentleman Moyer, the author, what he initially was, like you said, they kind of had a cat and mouse back and forth. But yes, to your question. Essentially, I agree with Molyneux that Moyer didn't really bring the beef. He had some aesthetic issues with libertarianism, and he had some claim with Rothbard's position on child rearing. But aside from that, that doesn't represent libertarian writ large. You know what I mean? The movement or the ideology. So yeah, just he didn't knock us down. I don't think, you know.
Yeah, I don't necessarily see that he's making huge points about the whole issue, and I think that Molyneux as well made a very strong critique about, yeah, those are over there. That's not libertarianism. Libertarianism is property rights, and the non-aggression principle.
Mhm.
Pretty straightforward. That's what it's about, and all this other stuff that you're talking about is not relevant. That was a solid critique as far as I could see there. Did you concur, Sandra?
Yeah, well, I think Will's article was a bit. Oh, I can't make up my own mind on libertarianism because libertarianism is non well non-aggression basically, and it seemed like he couldn't accept that you had to draw your own conclusions in the way that you had to what do you say? Uh, he he couldn't himself argue libertarian issues. Like Molyneux disagreed with Rothbard on children because he felt Rothbard broke the NAP. If you get children, you have to take care of them, for example. And it seemed that the article writer couldn't comprehend how he was to himself make libertarianism fit the NAP.
Well, he did make a point that I think kind of gets to the crux of what it was that he was trying to say, which to me is somewhat like what you would see from a Center for the Stateless Society or left libertarian argumenter would make, which is that if you accept the premise, he says, if you accept the premises of self-ownership and property rights is a logically consistent and powerful framework. But if you allow yourself to have wider moral sensibilities, the framework is woefully inadequate, if not grotesque in certain cases. He's basically saying that, like how Rothbard was saying that these other things are pushed into aesthetics, and Molyneux would also say that some of these things are aesthetics. That if it's not property rights and it's not violence, then it's some other issue. And then he goes into some other examples of these types of things that he says that we call aesthetics, and completely blows it. But would you agree that that is a general, truism, that if it is not dealing with violence or property rights, that it's the aesthetics thing going on there, and in the terms of the non-aggression principle, we don't have any statement on it. But then it doesn't deny that we have statements on it in our own personal perspectives, but when it comes to the specifics of the libertarian brutalist perspective or thin libertarianism, that those two things are exactly what we're talking about, and everything else is aesthetics. Is that correct? Would you agree with that, Randall?
Well, I mean, to a degree, yeah. I think there is a little bit of that going on to where we're arguing over preference, and then the other thing that I think Molyneux is quick to point out, and a lot of people are quick to, Michael W. Dean has not famous, but I like the line he says, I'm not the anarchist dictator or the voluntarist dictator or whatever I forget his actual wording, but he says, I'm not going to be this. Oh, I'm not going to be the free market central planner. You know what I mean? So it's like, some things will be left up to the market to decide how X, Y, and Z gets done. But in an unobstructed free market, there would be so many more options for a mother who didn't want their child or a father who didn't want their child. There'd be people willing to pay, or there'd be, and it wouldn't be like, oh, slavery, like, because the free market would not support that. Any goods that came from that, people wouldn't contribute to. But I think the bigger problem with Moyer's critique is that he didn't actually attack anarcho-capitalism. What he did do was he kind of just made some preference statements, and then he basically said, I'm going to be broad, and then he said, I'm going to switch over to anarcho-socialism. He does say that. He says, I'll read the quote. The essay is a result of an evolution in my thinking, one which has led me further from right libertarianism and strict anarcho-capitalism towards what could be described as radical leftist anarchism, or maybe libertarian socialism. So it's not as if he's making these slight critiques of libertarianism. He's strictly saying, I want to go from free market voluntarism to we all have to share things. I mean, that's a pretty fundamental shift, and he doesn't even defend that in the article that I could find.
Yeah,
You know,
it's a bit. It is a bit all over the place as far as like, where do you define yourself now? And I guess we don't necessarily want to put boxes on people, labels on people, but I mean realistically, the response that I would have is no. You're basically the left libertarianist, Center for Stateless Society type, and or maybe a liberal who believes that the state should be reinstituted because you can't figure out how to do it in a voluntary way. So you want to impose your preferences on other people. One of the two. Maybe he's gone anarcho-socialist, anarcho-communist, but if we actually give them the honesty for their position, if we actually honestly accept anarcho-communism and anarcho-socialism as being anarchist, they're not anarcho-communism and they're not anarcho-socialism. They're anarcho-capitalism with a preference for having communes and a societal sharing of stuff and doing things as a norm. But they're not going to prohibit people from actually doing the capitalist things that they might want to do if they're actually anarchist. So anarcho-capitalism is a belief system that says it's possible for you to choose to remain owner of the fruits of your labor. This includes land that you've homesteaded. And you can use it in ways that you would like to by having other people come onto your property and produce goods with it and give you some of their their product, and you give them a wage. This is entirely voluntary, and an anarcho-socialist or an anarcho-communist who believes that anarchy should reign, that there should not be a government or a ruler telling other people what they can or can't do, is actually saying, go ahead and be a capitalist if you want to, but it sucks. Well, that's anarcho-capitalism. It's libertarianism in its final result. But anyway, yeah, he does kind of like say I'm this or that, and is a little bit kind of fuzzy on it. But as far as like the critique, he's saying that when it comes to these other things that are outside of the property rights and violence, that they're all aesthetics. Would you say that 100% of everything that is not property rights and violence is aesthetics?
Yes.
And Sandra?
Well, I guess in theory, but there are some questions I might be, thinking about more. Well, yes, actually, because I would have to, those issues I would have to shift to either, violence or property rights, So yeah, absolutely, in theory, but there will always be some sort of, maybe not disagreements, but yeah, how people would do it differently, of course.
Okay, and another thing that that seems to, I don't know, befuddle me is that, and this is something that Molyneux really hammered on, is that yes, we're going to address the big thing, the gun in the room, the state, the coercive power of the state, and we want to get rid of these initiation of force things. And once we've dealt with that, if you want to have your happy unicorns, rainbows flying out of their butts, go for it. That's all fine and dandy. But the things that really matter, the first part, once we've handled that, the other stuff is just minutia. It's all this extra stuff that you can deal with. But this guy thinks that it's not minutia. It's actually like this huge thing that we have to take care of it. Okay. He goes into an examination on the parental obligations to children. Now Molyneux makes the response that says, well, there are some people who are anarcho-capitalists, who are voluntarists, who are libertarian, who they were abused as children, they were spanked as children, and therefore they have a lack of reasoning when it comes to dealing with the idea of spanking, that they misrepresent the non-aggression principle that way, and so you shouldn't take their opinion on that. I think that's a bad argument. That's kind of an ad hominem in certain ways. I mean, you're not debunking their argument by saying, well, you were beat as a child, so therefore your argument's invalid. But I mean, I agree with Molyneux that the initiation of force against a child is a breach of the non-aggression principle, even though the child may not actually have the ability to cogitate and think for themselves and create a contract and have an expectation of non-violence. But yeah, would you say that that there's any doubt in your mind as far as the abuse of children, or maybe not abuse, but the spanking of children in the rearing of them? Is that really that much of a question in the the groups that you hang out with, guys?
Well, I am from Norway, and in Norway, spanking is looked down upon very much. So when I look at Molyneux's videos about spanking, I can't really relate to that. Parents spank their children 900 times a year, or whatever it is.
So you would say that in your community of anarcho-capitalist, voluntaryists, libertarians, that this is not an issue that you've dealt with, that people don't think that it's a good idea to spank?
Yeah, I never met anyone, anarcho-capitalists, libertarians, or even statists, that has ever said that spanking children are good. Spanking children it wasn't banned until 2012, I believe, but spanking children has not been common since the early 70s.
And Randall, was that your experience, that it's something that doesn't seem to be in the libertarian mindset? It's pretty much a no-brainer that it's against the rules.
I wish I could say so. I don't feel that way at all. Actually, maybe in Norway you have a much better climate for child rearing. That's awesome. But in my social circles that I run in real life, because I wish I could say I run around with I don't live in the Free State Project. I don't have libertarians all around me. So in the real world, no, I hear spare the rod, spoil the child. That's
Oh, I'm talking about amongst your libertarian friends, though.
But even still, and I wanted to get that out there, but even still, I think that there's a little segment of the movement, maybe not the majority, but there's a good percentage that I've witnessed who kind of fruit through what Molyneux was. It's not like they're not gonna come out and say, oh yeah, hitting kids is great, the right way to raise them, but maybe they were hit, and their response to it is kind of like as a defense, which Molyneux encounters all the time in his call-in shows, people defending parents who are abusive, whether it's verbal or physical. And I think he is right, really right, to point out that if we teach abuse in the home, if we teach abuse in the family, we're going to learn to use aggression in our political and personal lives. Well, I want this dam built, or I want this levee, I want this access to this roadway, so I'm just going to get this politician to pull some strings for me and point some guns. When they have that template for using aggression to solve your needs, yes. So I don't think the libertarian movement has embraced what Molyneux is trying to do enough, and has gotten the message out that spanking is one of the biggest parts of the problem we have, and just violence because Rothbard was wrong, we throw the whole movement away. Because Rothbard was wrong on one thing, not even the whole.
Oh yeah, we definitely got to get to that point. That Molyneux makes a huge issue about the baby in the bathwater issue. Well, just from my perspective and from where I stand, and I know that maybe there might be some anarchists voluntarists, libertarians who believe that spanking is a way that is appropriate to discipline your child, to deal with the issues that your child is being disobedient or non-responsive and so on. You're wrong, period. There is no justification for it. The reason why your child did something that you didn't like is because you didn't handle the situation ahead of time. If you had put things in proper order by taking care of the environment for your child and not putting them in harm's way where they would potentially do something to screw up that would piss you off to the point where you would have to hit them, it's on you. You made the mistake. So ahead of time, get the matches out of the house. Get the lighter out of the house. Don't have all these dangerous chemicals in the house. If your child is interested in different things, expose them to those things in constructive ways. Don't just say, I'm the controller and I get to hit you. It's wrong, period.
I also want to jump in real quick, Robert, and say that it's not just hitting or not hitting. It's a lot of the libertarian movement is really vocal about alternative child rearing ideas like homeschooling and unschooling, and I think that is another part of it. To try to realize that, like, also social ostracism. That's one thing I want to just touch on real quick because that's what you inspired me, and I'll give you the thing back. Just if you have a friend or a family member who's like trying to have a sister or brother who wants to have kids and they're not prepared in their life, don't just give them the like casual passive aggressive support like, oh, I hope that works out for you, let me know, hope I'm the godparent. No, like, are you sure? Think about it. You're going to bring a life into this world, and they're going to think of you when they're 25 and 30 and say, did my parents give me a horrible lot in life, or did they raise me and have me at the right time where they were ready? If you're 18 or 20 or 22 watching this video and you're thinking, I just can't wait to have kids, reassess your life, because your brain isn't even fully developed yet to make that statement about yourself.
Yeah.
So.
Also, just as a side note, is if I'm not mistaken, the clear, fundamental, logical approach to how to deal with people who spank their children, who abuse their children in some way, is that you either A, you break the rules and you take the kid, and you get punished for it, but you've saved the kid, and the punishment is probably ameliorated because the society as a whole will not be willing to punish you for saving that child. And there will probably be a group of people who would actually offensively do that, and they would violate the non-aggression principle in principle by breaking through property and so on, and they would pay fines and so on, but they'd be willing to do so in order to save the child.
I don't think so. I don't think it breaks the NAP to take a kid from a, because you're assuming agency over, like, if you were on a train track tied up and I didn't even know you and I just pulled up and I saw you tied on the train track and I had to pull you and tug you and like rip your hair and yank you off that train track, it would be completely justified because I can assume that you did not intend to be there. And if you wanted to kill yourself afterwards, I would tie you back up and let you, that was you say, hey, I'm trying to kill myself. But in theory, you're going to be saying, help, it's the same thing. You know the child needs help. You know that they would not want, it's not like, oh, they like getting smashed in the face and not having food to eat. That must be fun for them. No, they have no alternative. They know that they don't know any other difference because they've never seen any other difference.
I don't know. I think that
it's not a violation. I don't think, but I think I could justify it.
You don't have agency there. You don't have a claim to actually fall back on, like saying, if it was your son and your son was being held by your ex-wife and she's got, or your ex-girlfriend or whatever, and she's beaten the child, then you have agency there. You can just go on in and do it because you are the guardian and the protector of the rights of the child.
Let me clarify a little better. I don't want to say that you have agency to do that writ large in all cases. What I'm saying is that when you, let's not say it's a violation of the NAP, let's talk about like maybe a breach, like a breach. So you are an abusive parent, let's say, and I come into your house and steal your child.
Yeah.
Now the child comes to me, and eventually you as a parent put a claim against me and say, this man stole my child, and I smacked him that one time, whatever. Now I could say, well, I'm willing to take the risk. So if this goes to court and it comes out that the kid wanted to be with you and you have all sorts of evidence and you can defend yourself and you're willing to go on, let's say, a 7-week surveillance program in your house to make sure that, because if you are an abusive parent, you can't keep that under wraps. You're going to scream, you're going to lash out, you're like, don't make me, So if the free market really could say, okay, let's get down to the meat and potatoes of this, are you fit to be a parent or not? Because if not, X, Y, and Z company will come and take your kid, and that alone is enough. And instead of it being a government, it's a company or a group. It's going to be somebody to come take the kid, but it should be somebody. I want somebody to come take those kids,
Well, of course, we want somebody to potentially do that. The thing that I would say is that, at least in the case of children being abused, that a person may end up putting out an offer on the internet saying, hey, we offer the service of coming in and is helping you escape bad parents. And are your parents abusing you? Come here, and then they actually will get the child to basically do a temporary claim of self-ownership and agency, and then request that. So in that particular case, no violation of the non-aggression principle is at all going on, because you are defending. You have had the child has basically assigned you their right of self-defense. And
I don't think that the child has agency either. So I think that what happens is that you give yourself, you homestead, so to speak, the agency. So the parent neglected the agency, right? Like if you had a gold watch you left on the ground and it seemed neglected, you could take that. That's fine within Rothbardian ethics. So I see a child that's being neglected and being abused, so it's obviously being neglected. No one wants that child, so I'm going to take that child. Now, the child can't lay claim. The child, I can kidnap that child, and I'm just as bad as the parent because I'm a kidnapper, but maybe I'm a great parent, so maybe it weighs out. But if that parent wants to come get their kid back, they can't debate that between the courts and the child and themselves. They need me now because I saw, whether I'm a person or an agency, I saw the neglect. I homesteaded the opportunity as a child. I said, I'm going to take that child and make them my own. Now now the person has to defend me in the court, not the child. The child's out of it in my mind because they don't have agency. They're not an adult yet.
So you're saying that basically the abuse of a child, the neglect of a child, is equivalent to a person who has abandoned a property, and then that land is now free for all. It's available for homesteading, and then you can homestead parental rights. So by abrogating their parental rights, their parental claim, or rights, their parental rights, they've abrogated those. They've decided that they do not want to actually fulfill those.
Yeah.
You come in and you now are homesteading the thing. Okay, that's fine, except for the fact that they still own the land that you go on to get the child.
Well, let's flesh that analogy out a little more. So we are in a community, let's say in a part of a world together, and there's your homesteaded land and my homesteaded land, and maybe there's this other land that you've homesteaded near my land, and you put a fence around, and you were using it for a period of time, and it just became your trash dump. You got a couple bins of old waste, you got all your just trash and old car engines and just junk out there. And you're not doing anything with land, you're just heaping, and it's making the land, the metals are seeping into the soil and making the land less fertile for growth and stuff. So as a community, we would all step together and take some sort of case against you, the landowner, and say, based on neglect of your land, we're going to reappropriate this land.
Oh, no. I totally disagree with you there. Wow.
Well, I'm telling you that there has to be a point where a DRO would do that in a free society, because if you take a land and you say, well, I'm going to start a factory, and you start dumping your waste into a river, there has to be a recourse for society.
Well, but that's property rights. That's a violation of property rights, and
exactly what I just said, though. How is that different from what I said? I'm saying
Okay.
A land that's damaged.
Randall, let me be clear. Clear. Okay, let's say that you own some property, and you sink down into the ground whatever distance is necessary to create this landfill, and you've protected the land, the water below it. You've protected the land,
that's fine.
The leaching and so on, and you're just using it as a dump. This is your land, you own it, and it has a purpose, and you have homesteaded it, and you're continuing to use it as a dump. That's your choice.
Let me give you a better example. You buy a highway, right, in a free society. Let's say there's an auction going up for a little section of highway. I know this is a common criticism of free market, or the Rothbardian idea of property rights, but
you're changing the goalposts on me.
No. This is just a better, more succinct opportunity. You buy. It doesn't have to be a highway. It could be anything, but a highway is a great example because there's capital improvements required. So if I let that go to ruin, or even better, I just say, you know what, I'm closing down my highway for this night. I'm gonna have the biggest party ever, and I'm gonna let people blow up grenades and rip the ground up and put things in the ground.
Are you still there? Looks like we lost him.
Well, maybe I can get in a little bit.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well, I do believe that when you have children, you agree that you have to protect them, you have to feed them, you have to make sure they aren't, sad, at least to some degree. So I would say that if you're extremely neglective, as a society, a community could potentially take a child from you, but I wouldn't equate it to property, because when you buy, for example, land, when you buy a small piece of a forest, you do not have to protect that forest. You don't have to make sure it has enough to eat. So I would hold a child higher than land, so to speak.
Well,
I don't know.
My response to it is the parental rights, or obligations in certain respects. I mean, if you cease to do that which is necessary to make claim legitimate for being a parent, then someone else could potentially homestead the child, is the claim, and homestead as in become the parent for the child. And that is it's an interesting thought process. I've not done that before. I've not explored that particular concept. But regardless, at some point, if you're going to go in and take the child away from the parent, unless you do it on your own property or somebody else who's willing to let you do it, you're going to be violating their property rights in order to go in and take that child out of the abusive situation.
Yeah, well, that is true. You will break your property rights, but I don't want to go all Molyneux on you. Well, in general, I'm not that a huge fan of him. Well, I am a fan, but I'm not. He's not my Ayn Rand, so to speak. But he had his good video on reject the non-aggression principle, which is called, and he has this other principle called you're a dick, which if you're supposed to sue somebody for saving their child, you're a dick. If you pay, suppose you want $1 million to sell a glass of water to a person that's about to die of thirst, you're a dick, and nobody would support you in any sort of society. So while I do believe in property rights, I don't think going sort of on somebody's property to save a child is morally wrong.
Well, when I think of morals, I break it into two pieces because I believe it's conflating two separate issues. One is pragmatism, and the other one is a claim that I have the right to stop you using force, or I get to use force to get redress for being wronged. In the case of the cabin in the woods where you're going to starve to death, you break in, you steal the food, you use the shelter, and you owe the cabin owner redress. You still owe redress, even though it was the moral thing, because it was pragmatic to do. Now, in the case of the child, it may be pragmatic to go in and take this child off the property and save them from this abusive situation. But it is also their right to be able to sue you for the breach of their property. And so if you broke down their door, if you caused them to have to get new locks, all these different things, yes, you have a financial obligation to pay that. And if everyone in the society thinks that you did the right thing, they'll probably chip in and help you pay for it. But bottom line is they do have a legitimate claim that their property was damaged by you in the act. Now, as far as the child, and now no longer having the child, I do think that the perspective that it is they are abandoning their parental responsibilities and parental claims by being an abusive parent, that makes sense to me. I like that. I think that's a legitimate perspective on how it is that we address people saving children from abusive parents. So then the question comes up, well, what about abusing animals? I mean, maybe that would be the case there as well. I don't know. I think that that's an interesting little aside, but let's get back to, I guess, the article in question. He points out all these different positions on the child abuse situation. Cantwell's response on this was pretty damn clear, that if you are abusing the child, or actually it was Molyneux in his critique of it, if you're abusing the child, you've essentially created a prisoner and are violating the non-aggression principle. I don't necessarily know which one's a better perspective, whether it's the abrogation of parental rights, therefore allowing homesteading, or the in the case of parental rights, or if it's a non-aggression principle violation. Can't say which one I like better, but both of them legitimately have defended the rights of the child to not be abused, or to allow people to come in and save the child from abuse. Then he goes on to another thing about the spanking, and all right, so then okay, that's still the same thing with the spanking. Oh, and he goes into the animal thing. He says there are no animal rights unless the animals request them, according to our belief system. So humans that are feel free to treat animals however they want. No, they're not just free to treat animals however they want. If you mistreat animals and it is known that you are doing so, you will find that there will be people who will do the pragmatic approach to dealing with the situation, which is to save the animals from your abuse, and they're willing to pay you the restitution of the loss that you may have incurred, but the society as a whole will continue to reinforce this person, and you'll find that it is not worth your time, or it's incredibly inconvenient for you to continue to do so. Not to mention that the social ostracism that would happen as a result of you abusing animals. That if you're setting up a dog fight rink, then people probably won't employ you as a football player. You think that is an appropriate response to this critique?
Yeah. I guess there's two ways to approach, maybe three ways to approach this. It's I think it was Lou Rockwell that said animals can't sort of make agreements, so therefore they have no rights. And then there's sort of what people think in general, like, oh, you shouldn't be cruel to animals. You should still eat them, but we shouldn't be cruel to them. And then there's, of course, some people that believe we shouldn't aggress against animals or their property or territory. I'm not sure which approach to take, but I'd probably be somewhere in the middle as of now. I'm not a vegetarian. I'm not sure what is the moral position to take for me. But yeah, absolutely. Communities would react against people being cruel to animals, whether it's dog fights, cock fights. Most people are against this. You can see, for example, in Spain, where they have matadors, fighting bulls and killing them for entertainment. Many people are against that and will ostracize people that support it, at least support it strongly.
Yeah. I got to go back to the hitting thing, because in the comments section we've got some people asking questions about, what if corporal punishment works better with lower IQ children, or what if corporal punishment works better with low IQ elderly? What do you mean works? The idea that you can't achieve a particular outcome without using violence to achieve it doesn't necessarily make the violence free from a claim of redress or the right to defend against it. So if you want a child that has a low IQ, or a elderly person who has a dementia and so on, and you are using violence to achieve some sort of ends, there will be people who will take it upon themselves to become the guardian of this person, and then will inject themselves into that situation and will homestead the caretaker role for these children and for the elderly, and protect them against you. And your legitimacy as far as a claim of loss is going to be fairly weak. That you have no claim of a right to abuse people simply because they're not doing what you want them to do, unless you do hit them. And realistically, though, bottom line, the efficacy of abuse, of hitting children, has been proven to be completely lacking. There is no, it doesn't work. There was recently a show on the Voluntary Virtues Network where they went over, spanking, and Kinsella is really very powerful on this. So I encourage you to look into spanking and Kinsella. Just put that into the search criteria on the Voluntary Virtues Network, and you'll find their video, and you can actually go through all the different details about, how non-effective it was. Children that were hit repeated the same activity within, I think it was 9 minutes of the spanking. It's just completely does not work. Anyway, we've got RJ back with us. Sorry that we lost you there. You wanted to explain how it is that a person's property rights can be violated aren't being violated if a person is going to go onto their property to take their child away from them. So you were making a parallel to something else, dealing with like somebody's tearing up their street.
Yeah, let me try to make it really simple so it's not like real convoluted. Start with the basic thing. So there's a situation. I'm hanging out with you, Robert. We're at a restaurant or a bar, let's say, and someone starts an altercation with you. Maybe it was a misunderstanding, right? You bumped into them and they said, "Watch it," and whatever. You know how things go. So I see you. You're my buddy. You're about to get into a fight, and maybe I'm a better fighter than you. I'm trained in mixed martial arts, and this guy's bigger than you. So I'm saying, you know what? I'm gonna get in and help Robert out here.
Okay.
You didn't say, RJ, help me, quick, get in. You didn't say I need your help, but I just assumed I'm gonna help you. So I go in, I land a mean punch on this guy, knock him down. He goes to the hospital. He's got a broken jaw. He's got a $6,000 bill. He wants someone to pay for that bill. He goes, I just said, watch it, buddy, and I laid you out. Now it's on to you, Robert, to say, am I going to defend him and say, well, if he didn't do that, I would have been mincemeat. So I'll pay that $6,000 bill, or I'll contest it with him that I was acting in self-defense, and I assigned him to act as my proxy.
Okay, that's fine, but that's not the point that I was making.
No, I just want to see if we were at least agreed on that.
Okay, so if we're in agreement on that, that's fine. All right, so I have assigned to you my bodyguard.
Yeah, I got your back.
You're my bodyguard. Okay, we're good there. Keep going. Okay,
so let's say we're not even buddies, and I just see some little person getting picked on, and I jump in and help them. He's getting his ass whooped, and I just jump in and pull people off and start beating them up.
So we've got an implicit contract in that case. Okay.
Is that one okay? That one sounds pretty good?
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, so from there,
let's say the restaurant owner is the guy who's beating up this guy, and you're looking in the window, and you see the restaurant owner hauling off and hitting me, and you bust down his door and beat the crap out of him. Yeah.
So I think it becomes a three-way case now between the restaurant owner, yourself, and myself, where the court would be looking to find out whether first of all, like, there'd be things that they were looking for, that like you and I had no prior contact, so that there would be no evidence of us arranging this for some reason to get him an ass whooping for no reason. They would look for that you were wronged by the restaurant owner in some way, and their evidence be for that. And then they'd be looking for something in the restaurant owner's past of being violent or doing these type of things in the past. And the court would see that, yep, this makes sense. This gentleman stepped in and helped out. And so you can keep extrapolating into these more and more.
Okay. All right. So your claim is basically this: that if violence is appropriate to defend another person's right of self-defense, then a violation of the person who is committing the aggression, by hitting them or shooting them or whatever, also extends to their property by proxy, that they are now giving up a right to have their property violated by the initiation of force.
Absolutely. Okay. So we're neighbors, and I see someone robbing your house, and they're sneaking out with all your stuff. I go, what are you doing? Stop! And I stop them, and I jump them, and I take your stuff back. I could say to you, Robert, I'm keeping your stuff because that guy was going to rob you, and I have footage. It's on the security cam. I could be a jerk, or I could just give it all back to you and say, Robert, here's all your stuff back, man. This guy was trying to rob it. I saved you. You don't need anything.
Well, a more accurate response, I guess, the more...
It's still right.
The comparison is more like this, that you see the robber breaking into my home, he's taking my stuff, and then you go over and you flatten his tire on his car.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Yeah, exactly. So he can't get away. Perfect.
Okay. So, yes, okay, I can see that. I think that you've clarified that for me, and my initial assessment may have been incorrect, that it doesn't require that there be a violation of the non-aggression principle. However, it can happen. You know, let's say I'm a landlord, and I have tenants, and one of my tenants is doing something to their children. You know, or they have, I don't know, but bottom line is that the the arbitration that would occur in those cases would reflect something like you're saying, where the person has given up their right to self-defense or redress by virtue of their aggression. And so, yeah, I'm with you on there. Okay, so let's. But I really like that homesteading idea. I'm going to have to think about that again. All right. So.
I was going to say it kind of came to me while we were talking. So
yeah. We'll have to look into it.
Yeah, I might flesh it out myself and write something, you know, more detailed on that. But
I think it's great. All right, it says, granted, libertarianism as a body of thought doesn't have to comment on every social issue. It can say nothing of race and gender and class. It can be silent on nonviolent forms of hierarchy and inequality. Oh. Just love the Communist Manifesto coming right out there, because all forms of hierarchy are bad. You know. All right, and let's see here. We will focus our ideology. Sorry. That's fine, especially as a conscious choice and intentional choice on the part of libertarians. We will focus our ideological work on this area and let other systems of thought cover everything else. But it certainly wasn't something I was aware of when I considered myself a libertarian. Well, then you pretty much had a bad understanding of being the libertarian. He said he thought the libertarian offered a robust and complete analysis of society. Oh. Libertarianism is a complete and robust analysis of society for you, isn't it? You know, with libertarianism, you have a complete answer to whether people should buy products that are good for their health.
No.
No?
No. Libertarian is not a do-it-all Swiss Army knife, like 108 tools in one. It's one tool that does a lot of things, you know?
Yeah. And Sandra, would you find that libertarianism addresses all societal concerns?
Well, no, and that's a part of the point, right? I don't know what you should do. You don't know what I should do. So we should ourselves decide what we should do. And of course, some of these problems, like inequality, some of them are addressed by the market as well, which he probably hasn't, you know, looked into. And yeah, it's also a matter of choice how you want to live. And yeah.
Well, you bring us to his next point. He says the problem is choice. Okay, yeah, the theft, rape, murder, and fraud all lie on the non-consensual side and therefore are not good. The other side includes all form of voluntary human interaction, which, again, because we're limited to political ethic, we can't really say much about it. It's all fine. No, it's not all fine. Like you said, we also have the NDP. There's the NAP, and then there's the next level, which is the NDP, the non-dick principle. You know.
I heard of that one. That's a good one.
Yeah, don't be a dick.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, just as a general rule, we kind of like the idea of people not being dicks.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
There's the moral part, which is the NAP, and then you have the YAD, which is how I heard it. You're a dick. And that's more the practical answer to some of the questions.
Yeah. All right. So he's saying that there's this gray area of all these different things. Well, yeah, in the non-dick principle, yes, there is a gray area. We can figure out which one's being, you know, which is being a dick and which is not being a dick, based upon our conventions and what our norms are. People talking during the movie, I think they're dicks. Do you think they're dicks?
Yeah, well, we paid to watch a movie in silence, usually.
So, realistically, though, that can be handled by the non-aggression principle as well, because the property owner can put a sign up and says,
Right.
talking during the movie, if you're violating, then you're breaking his property rights, and then he can kick you off. Non-aggression principle handles that. So then, leaving the starving child issue, okay, we've already addressed the starving child issue. You're abrogating your responsibilities and your rights as a parent, and therefore any other person can come along and homestead or claim that right from you and take the child away. If you didn't treat the child improperly, you wouldn't lose it. And suck it. Sorry.
Kind of suck it, yeah. Honestly, too, because it's not just. I mean, look, I'm a philosophical voluntarist. You know what I mean? As much as I can be. Maybe I miss on some things, and you guys can correct me. That's what I want to be corrected on my show too. But when you talk about children being beat or starved or neglected, I mean, there's clear neglect there. There's clear and the other thing, to your last point, Robert, we don't want to be prescriptive and say, here's how libertarianism deals with abuse of children. Here is an option that may work, and there are many options that may work. In a free society, if you didn't have a monopoly on child protective services, or whatever the nation in different parts of the world, what their services are locally, if that wasn't monopolized by force and aggression, the free market could bid up the cost of an unwanted child to where you could get $1,000 or $2,000 just for having unprotected sex and going through a pregnancy and saying, look, here's another kid for the world. Now the most responsible, unable to have kids, parents in the world can have 15 kids because they're rich and they just want a big family.
More likely, I mean, here's another option that I think that is very, very likely to occur, and it's totally different than what you're saying, because a lot of people will say, well, then we'll have overpopulation because everybody's just going to have a kid and abuse it and get paid for doing so. So the thing I have is, well, the child gets to be the age where they voluntarily move out of the home. They've provided some alternative living arrangements. They've claimed self-ownership. Mm-hmm. At this moment in time, they file a lawsuit against the parent and sue them for the damages done during their childhood, and they can provide evidence of the abuse that occurred in that home.
Mm-hmm. I love that one.
And I guarantee you that they're going to get some major buku bucks out of those parents, because the judgment, the judicial system is going to really, really be in favor of not abusing children.
Yeah.
That's what we as a society don't approve of. You will not find that you will see a lot of market support for DROs and arbitration services that support the abuse of children.
It's a free market issue when you look at it through the lens of voluntarism, but it becomes a social issue, and as a voluntarist, we have a hard time dealing with what are considered social issues because we don't believe in the idea of this homogenous group called society having needs, and I agree with that. But at the same point in time, if you have all these abused children growing up in the world, that is a higher, greater risk for the state coming back, because they're going to be tyrants in their little lives, and they're going to be trying to dictate. So if this science is out there that Molyneux has done countless hours of scouring and putting together to show all the data on how abusing children creates little tyrants in the world, abusive husbands, abusive wives, abusive parents, lowers your IQ, this, that, and the third, ruins the ability for children to reason and ration out, their own choices in their life and their goals. So if we know all this, there is a free market incentive to put children with the best parents. And I think that the value of an orphan child will be slightly less than what it's worth for a good person to go. Like, if you have a good job, you won't want to be pregnant for 9 months just to make $4,000 or whatever for your kid, to give your kid away. But if you're a welfare queen and you get pregnant twice a year, it's great for you, and that's fine, because we'd rather just give you the $4,000 so you can buy more drugs and lottery tickets, and let your kid go live with a great person and then learn a great life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, in all actuality, very likely you would see that the purchase of children that are unwanted would likely include some sort of voluntary agreement, like say, we're going to give you $10,000 for your kid, but you're going to have to get sterilized.
Yeah. Perfect.
That
or you're gonna have to forfeit all your future children to us for the same purpose, until you have X amount of savings and college fund or, assets or whatever the case may be. Just contract well. More contracts.
There's going to be all sorts of different market positions that are going to come up, and all sorts of different offerings that are going to happen. But we can't predict the future. We don't know exactly what's going to happen, but we do know that since society cares about it, there's a market price associated with it, and the market will attach a value to that, and there will be entrepreneurs who will be interested in serving that desire. We, as a society, as people, don't like child abuse. Therefore, there's a market. Therefore, it will be solved through a variety of different methodologies that will be provided by the market. Does that handle it for you? Sandra, what do you think? Does that...
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I have not looked that much into practical anarchism that I probably should have, but we don't know the future, but these ideas seem pretty reasonable. I mean, there's not much to disagree about, at least when it comes to non-aggression and what is fair in a virtuous society. So yeah.
All right, so Kenji, stop with the frickin' it's genetic survival-ish stuff in the comments. You always go into that. Let's talk about different things, okay? We can talk about that some other time. You can come back on the show.
I love Kenji.
He
was on my show last week too. He's cool.
Yeah. All right. So then let's take a look at what he says. All right. So a poor Chinese factory worker is far more constrained than a rich white business person. His range of possible options is tiny in comparison. Yeah. Okay. He's less free. The same is maybe true depending on your race, class, sexual orientation, the way you were treated growing up. Your parents, teachers, and peers may contribute. The way people like you are represented in the media and entertainment may contribute. Social prejudices and cultural norms may contribute. These factors don't mean people are being outright forced to do anything, but simply that they're constrained by their environment. Wow. That is a koala bear doll thing right here. It's koala bear. Little.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I love it.
Isn't that
That's
amazing?
Cool.
Wow,
That's really neat.
I just pointed out something that is known by everyone.
Yeah, it's cool.
If you don't know these things, you're a freaking idiot. So why did you say it?
Yeah.
Okay. Molyneux, I guess, says the same kind of thing in his critique.
Yeah.
I guess it's a bad argument though from our side. It's not really fair to just say, well, okay, yeah, so what?
Well,
is it?
I mean, I could retort it a little bit. I think that it is a crappy. Well, no. Let me be more professional. So, I think the problem with that line of reasoning, if you want to call it reasoning, is that it's egalitarian. You're arguing from equality. We're not aiming for equality. Libertarian doesn't promise equality. We don't propose that equality is the answer. So if you're pointing out that there's inequality in the world, then thank you for noticing, and that is true. And inequality breeds competition. It breeds options, and it breeds texture and culture, and it's great. So I don't want homogenous society.
If we didn't have inequality, then we wouldn't have people like Pentatonics singing amazing music.
Mm-hmm.
Because they'd have to be like me and kind of like do karaoke somewhat well, and that's about it. Okay, I'm not going to be going to be a rock star or some amazing singers like they are because I've got different talents. Okay, we get it. All right. So, but the claim is then we somehow cause exploitation in hierarchical and authoritarian circumstances to exist because of these differences in natural ability or societal expectations, societal norms. Is it exploitative because women are born with curvaceous bodies that both genders seem to find enjoyable?
Well, I think his argument was it's not a critique of libertarianism as much as a critique of biology, really. It might, yeah.
Go ahead, keep going.
Yeah, well, it might be harder for a Chinese peasant to feed himself and get what he wants, but it will be like that anyway. You can't. There will always be some people that will be forced to be not as doesn't have a large advantage as some other people, and that is biology. Because people want, they want to live, obviously, and they need food and water to live. And I wouldn't say it's a critique of libertarianism, because you'll find this under any system, no matter what you're aiming for.
RJ?
Yeah, I think that the author Moyer, he kind of argues along these lines. Libertarianism is bad because feelings and free stuff. Like, all you did is go from philosophical, rigorous libertarianism, or at least wearing the flag, or putting the patch on your sleeve, to I want free things, man. I'm sorry, I just want free things. Like, I want free things, and I want people to get free things, and I want to give free things to poor people, and I want to force you to pay for it, and I just changed my mind. That's all I'm hearing in his article, truthfully.
And the thing is that if we take a look at the consequentialist libertarian argument, here's how it goes. In order to have someone give to someone else to prevent starvation, they must have the excess necessary to prevent themselves from starving in the act. If I don't have excess, then I starve when giving to a starving person. Okay? This does not eliminate starvation. Being a nice person and giving does not eliminate starvation. What eliminates starvation is having wealth, excess, having that extra stuff that you can give to other people so that you can help them out of their circumstances. So the question that I would have for our author here, if for the sake of argument you had a system where you could generate, let's say the average American income is being $125,000 of buying power, of current today's buying power per year, with zero debt and zero financial obligations imposed upon them by the state, and their value of the currency that they save would increase capital for the rest of everyone and themselves as well. So their investments would continue to grow the amount of monies that they have. Do you not think that after satisfying their hunger to their complete sated point, they've got the best food that they could possibly ever eat for an entire year with that money. They've got the best entertainment that they could possibly get for the entire year with that money. They've got the best health care that they could buy for that entire year. The best trips, all these things are satisfied by the time they're done. They've satisfied all of their desires that are on their top levels of like hierarchy of needs or wants. Some people call it Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Some people use another hierarchy of needs. We call it subjective preference. Okay, they satisfy their subjective preference 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They get all the way down, and on some people's list, number 14 happens to be help the starving.
Charity.
Help the starving poor.
Yeah.
Some people have that as option. Item number 30,000. Some people have that as item number 10. Some people have it as item number 4. Okay. Some of these people will get to that point and they'll be like, oh, wow, I can actually feed all these people. And not only that, I can not just feed them, I can actually create businesses that will provide them the opportunity to bring themselves out of the squalor peasantry.
Or, Robert, I mean, I think that's true. I think that's definitely true. But I think that the free market, when unobstructed, will solve that too. So I could create a business called, your business loves charity or something.com or whatever, and your business signs up, and if you're a silver member, that means you have to give 2% of your profits to charity. If you're a gold member, that means you have to give, 5% of your profits to charity, and if you're platinum, you have to give 8%, whatever. And you could kind of base whether I want to buy this brand of ketchup or that brand of ketchup based on they're a gold member of the charity club organization or whatever, knowing 5% of my ketchup is going to charity. I could buy the 10-cent cheaper ketchup and be greedy, or I can go, you know what, for 40 cents more, like Robert said, I got a little bit more room on my check. Let me buy the charity ketchup this time and the charity bag of chips and the charity gas station.
Yeah. And the other thing that's really cool about charity in a free market is that it actually works just like a business. The charity that successfully achieves the goal of saving people from these bad things gets more money more often than the company that is providing the charity that doesn't do the job well. People don't like giving to charities that don't actually do what they're supposed to do. But in the government system, where you feed everybody all willy-nilly and you just have no rules that are really allocated according to market pricing, you have no way of determining whether it's effective to do this particular policy or that particular policy, you have no competition, you're going to screw it up. You have the opportunity to take, I don't know, basically it's like a dartboard, okay? You've got a guy who's picked out from a bunch of different bureaucrats who gets to throw the dart at the dartboard, and he might hit that bullseye. He might. He might be the perfect solution for the problem. Maybe. Or you could have a bunch of people from the free market, and you can grab all these different people and say, all right, come over to the dartboard. And they all throw darts, and the one that hits the bullseye is the one you give the most money to. And you start giving more money to him and more money to him because he's hitting the bullseye, hitting the bullseye, hitting the bullseye. Why would you waste your time giving money to the people who are not doing the job very well? You don't. But you have to figure out who throws the dart best first.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Let's. Did I cut you off from anything there, Sandra?
No, I agree. I mean, when the state has a monopoly on charity, well, maybe not a monopoly, but they give a lot of charity. I mean, I don't know what the U.S., but in Norway they give roughly 1% of GDP to charity. People think, oh, well, the state does all the charity for me. Why should I give a fuck about what happens? Everybody's saved because the government does it. But of course, like I said, one bureaucrat, one dart. You know.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
All right. So then, let's see here. All these deficiencies of libertarianism result in one thing: a limited vision for the future. Libertarians want a world without a state. Beyond that, the philosophy says little about the shape of human culture. Sure. Okay. No. Just like Molyneux said in his critique, that's like saying, yeah, I'm against hitting people on the head. Oh, you hit them on the shoulders. No, that's not what we're saying. We are saying we are against the initiation of force, fraud, coercion, theft, the violation of property rights and personal rights. The person being a self-decider. They own themselves, not ownership as in like, I can sell it, blah, blah, blah. Ownership as in, I'm the final decision maker for this. Okay? They own themselves and they own their property. They're the final decision maker, and if you violate that rule, then you have broken a covenant there. And that means that they can try to stop you using the force that is necessary to stop you, or they can come at you afterwards and say, make me whole again. Do what it is necessary for me to have, in essence, basically said, all right, well, I was okay with that at the time. All right, what does libertarianism have to say about the shape of human culture? Does it have nothing to say about the shape of human culture? Sandra?
Well, to be honest, as a libertarian, I don't give a fuck about human culture as in what should humans do. Humans should define culture and do the kind of culture that they feel is what they want to do. So I don't know what else he meant by human culture. Does he mean like anything else in art and museums? I don't know. It feels kind of. This isn't even. There's many people that thinks that this shouldn't be done by government. There's not much else to say than humans should choose the culture they want to choose. And I personally, I don't know, wouldn't care at all what kind of culture people would choose in a voluntary society, so long that culture isn't violent.
Okay, and what did you have to say on it, Randall?
Well, I think that I agree with both you and Sandra as well. That I don't think we are, as a libertarian philosophy, as a movement or whatever. I don't think it's libertarianism's place to prognosticate or prescribe a specific template. Whereas, and I think that's exactly right. So to Moyer's point, yes, you're right. We don't have that, and we don't aim to have that. And we essentially left that out on purpose. I don't say we, but you don't hear Mises or Rothbard or Molyneux or anybody saying what we need in libertarianism is a lot of McDonald's or a lot of exercise or a lot of free sex. Like, no one's saying what a libertarian society or a voluntary society should necessarily have. We're saying what it necessarily should not have, which is violence and aggression. So we're excluding only a few things and leaving the rest open, as opposed to doing the opposite.
And the thing that I really want to make clear is that we are coming from a position that is not assuming or arrogant in its assumption of being right. Okay, we might have a claim that says, the treating of women with respect and with the appropriate amount of respect and the appropriate amount of ensuring that they are not perceived as sex objects should require them to have burqas, because that's appropriate for our society, that we protect women from having ogling occur. No, we're not saying that. We have no position on that as a societal norm. We do know that if the woman doesn't want to have the burqa, and you make her have the burqa, and she doesn't agree to it, the person who is imposing their will on the other is obvious. And there is a violation that occurs there. So we have something to say when there is a violation of another person's right. Okay? I was talking with Randall on this subject about the golden rule. And a lot of people who come from the left will use the golden rule as if it is some sort of great thing. Now, the intent behind the golden rule is great. I love it. But it's wrong. The golden rule is a mistake. Okay? It is an idea that says, do unto others what you would have them do unto you. It is a prescriptive, a positive right. You, because I didn't do something for you, you can claim that I breached the golden rule. I have an obligation to do it. No, that is a positive right, and it's not acceptable. Okay. Also, it says, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. Okay. Unto others as you would have them do unto you. I like barbecue sauce in my burgers. So I'm going to put barbecue sauce in my burgers when I make them for my friend who comes over to visit and help me move. And he freaks out. What, you didn't want barbecue in your burger? You should have told me that you didn't want that. I was just doing for you what I would have you do for me because I like barbecue in my burger. It's an assumption that your position about what things should be like is right. It's not that rule. The rule is, do not do unto others what they would not have you do to them. If they don't want you to do it to them, you don't do it to them. Now, of course, they kind of break the rules if they violate your rights, so you can, at that point, you get to work out whatever it is you're going to do. If they violate your rights, you can respond with force. You can break that rule. But before somebody is the aggressor, you shouldn't do things to other people that they did not want done to them. Would you concur, or is that you disagreed with me on this before, Randall? So I mean, what's your opinion on this?
I don't disagree with you in principle, Robert. I disagree with you in practice because I'm a marketing person, and golden rule just rolls off the tongue. Whereas do not do unto others as you would not like to have not done unto you. Not. It just doesn't fit on a business card or on a billboard very well. So golden rule to me is like the cheese that gets the mouse to come into the cage and then get stuck. Like, we say golden rule because people can relate to that. Yes, it's in our circles. No, please don't run around saying we want the golden rule. You corrected me, and I thank you for that, because that's not a accurate way of promoting voluntarism. But at the same point in time, it's a lot closer than we need a state. The state and the golden rule is different, because do unto others as you'd like done unto you says you might want a state, so you can do unto them to have a state, but they don't want to have a state. So they can do unto you to not have a state. There's a conflict. So how do you resolve the conflict? Well, the overarching thing that we can all agree upon is that you would like to order yourself as you would like to be ordered, and I would like to order myself as I would. So we would both do unto each other that right of self-ordering. So that's the way I viewed it initially, and then you kind of clarified and redefined some things and made me see it more, I guess, clinically. So now I can kind of be more precise. But they're both good in a way, you know. Maybe.
Yeah. There is the silver rule, which is do not do unto others what you would not have them do unto you, which again is wrong because it's all based upon your subjective preference. It should be based upon the recipient's subjective preference, likelihood. But yeah, I'm with you. I think that the golden rule rolls off the tongue, and in principle it sounds good, but we can use it, we can call it by that. But if you really want to get down to the philosophical origins of things, anything that is a prescriptive, you must do this or you're not being principled, is wrong.
But okay. Like Ron Paul used, I just want to touch real quick. Ron Paul used the golden rule in a lot of his stuff when he was running for presidency and stuff. In a lot of his debates and whatnot, he talked about the golden rule in regards to foreign policy, and I think that's a really apt venue to bring it into, to say, as a nation, and I know we all don't want nations, but so to speak, on the road to liberty, we can seriously understand how we wouldn't want it if Somalia or Germany or France had 115 bases in our country, or if there was 150 nations with military bases everywhere in the world. We can't have that reciprocity. So being as we would not want France and Germany and all these countries that have bases in North Dakota and New Jersey and Florida, that'd be crazy if you were driving down the street and you saw German military base and France military base and Somalia military. You'd be like, what the hell is going on here? What do you have? One big war state of the world, So we can understand from a golden rule perspective that, hey, I don't want military bases in my country, so I'm not going to vote or insinuate that I want that in your country either.
But what if you're one of those self-destructive people that says, you know what, I'd like to have some Nazi bases here?
Yeah, well, fuck them.
All right, so moving on from the golden rule, I want to go ahead and get to the last point that I wanted to address on this particular article, because we're running out of time. We've got 8 minutes left, and there's a couple other things that we might get to as well. All right, so he finally gets down to it, and he says, my goal isn't a society based on property rights. My goal is human flourishing. I want an ethical, free, and humane planet. According to who? All right, a world where humans take care of each other and other living creatures. I want a world of flattened hierarchies. Oh. Including the non-violent ones. So everybody's going to have to be the same height. We should probably all be clones. That'd work.
When I need medical care, I'll just go to any house in the street and knock on the door and say, hey, I'm sick. Can you help me?
Fix me up, baby.
Yeah.
All right. A world with human dignity. That may be a future where property rights, as we think of them today, don't exist. Or maybe it's actually a world in which property rights actually do exist, because it happens that way. Let's get into it. All right, let's see. It may be a post-scarcity society, world full of abundance. It may be a world where our familiar social structures, both macro and micro, are vastly different. It's up to us to build it. All right. So a little bit of Obama there. We didn't. You didn't build that. All right. So let's go through it point by point. Your goal is human flourishing. It's human flourishing. Oh, I see. So you have a consequentialist position. So the ends justify the means. So if we can have a society that is human flourishing, where humans are living in a world of plenty and enjoyment and happiness and everything, but it required euthanasia, or not euthanasia, eugenics, and we could actually go ahead and start weeding out all the people who have violent tendencies in their heads. Maybe there might be a movie about that, actually. Or like, some guy with a sword goes around. They don't have emotions. Everything's all happy. Oh wait, never mind. You want emotions. You want people to be happy. But yeah, we can go ahead and just kill off all the bad guys, and then we'll have a happier society, because it's all about the human flourishing. It's the end that is the justification. Ends don't justify means. Consequentialism is bad. It is the same rationale for the Third Reich. You're a Nazi, but you're not willing to admit it. Okay? You want a perfect world after it's all said and done, but not along the way. Okay. Basing your positions on the end result instead of on foundational principles is a bad way of thinking. It leads to abuses and abuses. Now, the thing that's really funny about what it is that your goal is that you seek to have exactly what it is that the free market does provide. I'd like you to ask yourself, how much did you spend the last time you went out to, I don't know, a restaurant or bar or a casino, and you paid for your sweet and low or your sugar or your mustard, ketchup, matches,
napkins,
straws. Yes, straws. How much did you pay for those things? Not a damn thing, really.
Free parking.
The free market it reduces scarcity. It gets rid of those things. Okay, it makes everything all built in. It's already included. It's freely included. We may come to the point where the use of property, land, is so efficient, and people's productivity is so efficient that when you pay your rent, which is maybe $5 per month, because it's so damn efficient, $5 a month, and it includes all the gas and all the electricity and all the sewage and all the water and your high-speed internet access, which is a terabit per second, and an occasional free trip to the moon. We don't know where it's going to go, but we can tell you this, that it's already done it for a variety of different products and services throughout the world. Okay, the free market reduces scarcity for items that are easily made, and it doesn't for those things that are not easily made, because it's their natural scarcity. Platinum coated, platinum made jewelry, it's kind of expensive in certain respects because platinum's not easy to come by. It's hard to get. Okay, well, that's appropriate analysis of the system. So anyway, I want you guys to have the last word, and I'll just wrap it up. We got let's see, minute each. Go for it.
Yeah, well, I agree. Consequentialism is bad because it allows so much destruction on the road to the perfect society. And what even is the perfect society? That depends. Like you have David Freeman, who's a consequentialist, anarcho-capitalist, but then you have people like, I don't know, maybe Hitler. He wanted a perfect society, but his perfect society was, all Germanic, no Jews, no inferior people. So consequentialism allows for such terrible things. But if you build sort of your ideas on morality and what is virtuous, you have to sort of think that you can't kill people, you can't destroy property. So I think it's pretty bad. And of course, he also argues from a moral perspective in a way that he wants not human flourishing, but a humane society. A humane society, what is that? That's
yeah, who decides that? What is your humane society, Raymond? Sorry.
It's all good. I knew what you meant. Yeah. It's all good. So I want to wrap my thought up with kind of an analogy, not an analogy, but an illustration of a point. You were talking about, Robert, the free market, and we were talking about centralization and consequentialism, but instead of it seems like we lost Moyer to anarcho-socialism because of his lack of faith in the free market, or the lack of belief in that could do something. Let's look at any practical product, like Robert said. If the government any government had the ability to come up with something like an iPhone or a cell phone or an iPad a decade before the market, they would have left all over that, but they had some scientists or some way to get that out there and get that in everyone's hands and track everyone. But it would be impossible. It was impossible. That's why it never happened. It took the richness of millions of developers, millions of startups, all working in tandem to let the market work. The market is 100,000 inputs and one output. 100,000 inputs and one output. You get all these little pieces like the pencil. So I would just encourage Moyer to go look and study and stop professing ideas that aren't fully thought out. If you want to take a side, but be sure.
Yeah. Well, consequentialism we know is bad. Starting from principles is good. The spontaneous order that a free market actually produces gets you the best results. So in any case, that's the last of us here at the Anarchist Experience. Again, thank you for joining me, my guests, Randall and Sandra. Thank you for joining us. If you're catching the show, we'll catch you next Sunday. I'm going to be doing a show that's going to go over the Justicar's response videos to our previous conversations about his work. I'm going to do a pre-recorded, and it will be a full analysis of his commentary, since having a dialogue is just not possible if one person's live and the other person gets to do all their thinking and writing up all their notes and all that kind of stuff. Anyway, stay tuned for the next show. Thank you for joining us. Goodbye.